and look forward to questions and comments, and Anna's going to facilitate as we need to. So you know me being that I really like the interactive part of a presentation. So I'm going to work through my slides here, but feel free to jump in and clarify things if you need to, and we'll just kind of get rolling here. So, okay. So many of you know that there are diagnostic criteria to ASD. So we're going to start with kind of the big picture, what I refer to as the 3 S's of ASD. So we have the sensory integration and intrusions, all the sensory issues, challenges, sensory seeking, sensory avoidant challenges for kids with ASD. The selective and specific narrow interests, also known as passions and preoccupations for kids with ASD. And of course, the third one, the one we're going to be talking about tonight, the social communication and interaction. So this is not a diagnostic talk tonight. This is just the 3 general parts of ASD. It is, as you know, way more complicated, but let's just break this down so we can get to the social communication and interactions. And the reason that I like this topic is because of this social interaction and communication criteria. It is a really, really big condition, a really, really big part of this condition, and it really gets confusing and challenging for people. I like the quote here from Hans Asperger, one of the founders of ASD and Asperger syndrome back in the 40s. And I think it just says it's the clearest, and I might even add the most challenging sign of the disorder or difference. All right. So we're going to break down and do some of the overviews of the social communication and interaction disorder with varying parts that you may have noticed, and feel free to look at one of these and go, well, mine isn't this one, but it's that one. And again, this is such a large topic to cover. Again, we're not going through diagnostic criteria. We're just going to kind of remember that these are, oops, Mr. Sun's coming out. Sorry about that. So let's just go through some of these indicators to make sure we're all on the right page here. So we have the reading and navigating conversations, pragmatic everyday communication. These are kids that just have difficulty knowing when it's time to talk, talking too much, knowing what to say and where and when to say it. Some of the other more challenging and more common, I think, ones for me might be the monologuing, or what I call the passion speech, which might be the child that just likes to say things that they're passionate about, which is fantastic and also needs some help. The lack of social reciprocity gets a lot of kids stuck and in kind of social trouble, if you will. We'll talk about how to help kids through that. The low frustration tolerance, that quick to irritate when things aren't socially or communication-wise going as they expect. And of course, the social inflexibility and social rigidity. That a lot of these do get kids a lot of barriers to positive social experiences. So imagine having all of these challenges and having to navigate all these and many more even. This is not a complete list by any means. So they have to figure out how to overcome all these barriers. And so we're going to break down these into the 3 subtypes here in just a second. So let me go on to the next slide. This slide is really just some of the things that I have heard from parents. And so what you're going to read on one side of the slide is the quotes, and then my responses to people. And what happens is, because somebody might have read somewhere or heard from somebody that their child in the first quote from a parent or a teacher, somebody, my child loves to talk to people. And I might say, that's fantastic. And then who is it? Well, it's anybody and everybody. Okay, so this is where that can be a problem. They answer or argue questions in class all the time, and that can be a challenge because it's all the time. Again, my responses are in the parentheses here. So you might have some of yours that we can go over. If you would like to share, feel free to do that. They love to talk about their interests in, but unaware sometimes about what others' interests are. He gets so upset when he can't finish his story. Boy, is it hard to stop and wrap up that story. And then the final example, she takes things very literally. And this can, of course, cause confusion with coworkers and friends in that situation. So this is where, again, kids with ASD get into that social trouble. So let's talk about why I broke this down. Because the social communication interaction part of ASD is so big, and the helping to that can be too vague. We're going to start narrowing it down and breaking it down even more so we can be better at helping. One of the things that I used to, and I still like to talk about, but really presented on a few years ago, was ASD understanding to action. And I still like to talk about the more we understand, the better we are at helping our kids with ASD and helping them solve these challenges. So we're going to understand that this social interaction communication challenge has what I've noticed. And again, these are 3 social subtypes that I have created to help me with my clients. I don't think that these are in a book anywhere, or if they are, it's by chance and by luck, and maybe 2 people are thinking along the same lines here. But this has really helped me talk with families about which part of their child. And some of these can certainly go back and forth. Maybe they were avoidant or wanting when they were young and now more socially avoidant. So we want to be able to help them differently through these steps. But these are the 3 basic subtypes that we're going to talk about today. Socially avoidant, socially wanting, socially curious, and socially indifferent. All right, any questions or comments so far? All right.
Not yet.
All right. Hey, I want everybody to help themselves to the Danish that I put out, and there's coffee and tea in the back of the room. And I'm sorry, I'm just getting ready when COVID is over to offer food and drink, that. So just help yourself.
We do have one question now.
Okay.
What do you mean by wanting?
Let's start the definitions here. All right, here we go. All right. We're going to start with socially avoidant. So we're going to define each one of these and then how to help. And that's going to be the essence of what I'm going to talk about tonight. So how to help. So what is socially avoidant? Socially avoidant is socially anxious, socially wary, socially aversive, and socially introverted. So these are kids who have at the beginning as younger children, or perhaps as they grew up, became more socially anxious. So kids can be socially interested in other kinds of kids and socially curious, but maybe they have, and I've heard this a lot, a negative social experience causing them to be more anxious and more afraid and that comes across to you probably different. That comes across to you as socially refusal, socially obstinate, socially oppositional, but it's really an anxiety. It's really a nervousness, and that's the way we want to help, is through that kind of feeling and that kind of route. So the first thing in this list of how to help a socially anxious child is to be sensitive to that anxiety. They might come across, like I said, angry and upset and irritated and, no, you can't make me be social, and you're right, we're not going to make you do anything, but we're going to help you. So we want to be sensitive to their anxiety, and so one of the things we want to do is play, and playing with your child helps them, whether it's playing a video game with your child or playing cards or playing dolls or cars or Legos or whatever it is, helping them, being with them during their time of play. And as you're playing with them, take on this role. And I kind of like this strategy because you can just kind of play with them as a parent, and then you don't want to play with them like a friend. You're still the parent, but you might say something like, hey, if I were your friend right now and I wanted to switch this game, or I wanted to change this rule, how would you feel about that? Oh, you can't change the rule. No, you can't. This is the way this game goes. Oh, I see. So you would want to tell your friend that this is the way this game is played. Okay. Did you know that this game, or this, what we're playing with Legos, can be played lots of different ways? Well, I only like to play it this way. Ah, I understand. Okay. And there are kids that like to play it other ways. So we want to kind of model and coach them through different ways of play and interacting. Please don't provoke them or say things that are provocative or that might come across as insensitive in your attempts to help them. Like, oh, your friend would never like you if you played that way. We'll just kind of leave that out. So just kind of keep positive and keep encouraging. Social time. So for the socially anxious and avoidant child, we really want to dial all the pressure to be social back. We really want to hone in on the on things and triggers that set up this child to be anxious. So we want things to be familiar, predictable, consistent. And those of you who use a visual schedule get bonus points on this one. So make sure that that social time is just familiar. So there might be familiar friends, familiar family. These are one of my exceptions to the rule, where a friend can be a family member in this stage of socially anxious. So I see kids who might say, when I ask them about their friendships, I might say, hey, tell me about your social world. Tell me about your friends and your classmates, and say, oh, I have 3 friends. And the parent might look at me and say, they're his cousins, or they're his brothers, or they're something. And I might, in this stage, use the exception to that, but as they get older, I'm going to want to move that along to kids outside the family. So for these socially avoidant, one-on-one with friends, one-on-one with a parent, one-on-one as they're able, and then adding to that group as you can. And throughout all of this, we're always kind of understanding, like, how are you feeling about this? How we're doing this either together or, to my next point, in a parallel way. I had a dad and son talk the other day about working together in the shop, about working on some things together. And I said, we didn't talk a lot. And I said, you know what, were you together in that sort of same space? And did he ask you for, hey, Dad, where's this tool? Where's that tool? And he said, yeah, he did. Okay, well, that's interacting, and that's okay. So that might be a parallel way of, hey, can you do this while I'm doing that? So I'm using the stereotype like dad or mom in the shop, dad or mom in the kitchen, dad or mom anywhere. So any parent doing any one of those things in parallel or interactive is great, and kind of keeping it to that one-on-one in this way. Another strategy is to use the focal point for interacting. So we want to be thinking of what their interaction would be in their passion or their preoccupation. Well, what if their passion and preoccupation is not yours? Let's try to think flexibly. So as parents, we are better at thinking flexibly and drawing from those kinds of passions, things that we can use outside of that. Or add to it. If we're always trying to kind of figure out ways to engage them socially. Social engagement in media and screen time is kind of another whole topic. I know people have a lot of questions about social engagement with kids online and that kind of thing, and is it right or wrong, good or bad? And of course, it is different for every child. There are some good strategies to talk about how to be social. I didn't actually even include that in this talk tonight. That might just be a separate talk. But you can play with your child in a parallel or an interactive way without being online. So using video games is just like any other game or toy. It's fine to do that for some of the time. Using and introducing social language together, we will do this. Or let's see, when you're introducing your child to a new activity or a sport or a hobby, we want to be thinking of doing it with other people or groups just in conversation. That might trigger some anxiety, and so we want to be sensitive to that and dial it back and maybe say, well, we're not going to do, day camp this year, but some year you might want to take your love for fishing and your love for camping and be with other kids in the same space, that kind of thing. So we're starting to kind of introduce social language and around their area of interest. And we're always looking to reduce those triggers to anxiety. So be aware of those triggers to anxiety. The triggers might be sensory triggers. So sights, sounds, smells. I'm thinking of, let's go to the school carnival. That'll be social. No, it might not be. It might be just a panic attack. So, let's talk about what that experience might be. And in that discussion, you're going to notice your child get elevated or feel calm. Like, oh yeah, I think we could do that. That would be really fun. I like the outdoors, or I like being in a quiet space at the History Center where it's quiet and it's the same temperature, that kind of thing. So as you talk about different kinds of activities and social opportunities for your child, let's reduce those triggers and get them down as much as possible. And then, the final one is just as important as all of them, ending your social time in a positive way. We want to be sensitive to how things are going. So have that third ear out. If you're away from your child and another child playing together, we want to be listening to how that dialogue is going, checking in on them frequently if need be, and maybe making comments like, oh, you guys are working things out, or it looks like you're enjoying your time together, and then looking and listening for, are they enjoying that time together? If neither of them are saying anything, it might be that they're not, but as kids with ASD sometimes demonstrate, it might be that they are. So read that as best you can. But ending in that positive way increases social experiences. I have seen too many children have negative social experiences, and that can really be traumatic. So the socially avoidant, socially anxious can be a natural way, a natural subtype of this particular challenge, or it can manifest itself, or it can be incurred later on as the social challenges get more difficult in middle school. So any questions on the socially avoidant and how to help? All right. Next, socially wanting. All right.
There is a question, a response in the chat, Mitch, if you want to just open that up.
Okay. Can you summarize that, Anna?
Yeah, so it says, my kid is older. Today in Target, wanted to buy another new game to play with Grandma and Grandpa. I suggested we played some of the games we do have. He asked why we didn't. I didn't quite know how to remind him that Grandma and Grandpa aren't all that interested in playing a game with him because of his rigidity and frustration when someone does something he perceives as wrong.
Okay. Boy, there's a lot in that one. Um, so to me, that first question or comment came with, while we were at the store, the child decided to buy something. That may not be the most significant part of that question. It may be, but let's try to demonstrate, or let's try to talk up our other people who want to be social with our family. So family members that, grandma and grandpa have more fun with you doing something else, or let's see who else can play a game with you rather than grandma and grandpa. And maybe not, we'll try to avoid, they don't like to play with you because, and all the child hears is what? Something probably negative about their social interaction, because you're too rigid, or you're too, and the child really just hears what? They just hear you're bad, you're not good enough. So we want to really start to reframe language and communications that can promote positive social opportunities and experiences. For example, did you teach your grandparents how to play that game? Well, they might not know, and it might be really kind of weird for them to sit down and watch you play. I don't know how you like to watch people play a game. Well, actually, that is true. A lot of kids do like to watch other kids play games on YouTube, but so you can kind of get into that a little bit more. So, but we want to be positively promoting those kinds of social interactions and opportunities. Socially wanting is the child that is the opposite in some ways of the socially anxious. They are all in, and perhaps to a fault, perhaps to, okay, let's dial it back, let's bring it back and coach it back. So just as we're coaching other kids who are socially anxious, we're coaching kids who are socially wanting to kind of bring it in a little bit. But we have different, so we're going to do some things that are different here too. So we're going to have finding the right social partners. Kids sometimes who are socially wanting want to hang out with kids that don't fit for them. They might be sporty kids who are into sports where your child may or may not be into sports, or vice versa. A lot of kids who are socially wanting engage kids who are either much older or much younger. And that is okay developmentally younger at a younger stage, but as they grow and go into and get into puberty, the much younger child or the much older becomes more difficult. So we just want to see that as it grows, and as your child develops, try to kind of get into that peer group and talk about peer group about the same age kind of thing. So you might hear me talk about kids that are about your age. So a year or two older or younger is considered okay and considered fine. We want to kind of help them move out of the much younger and much older range. And that, of course, doesn't apply for kids who are in a mentor role. That's not that. Role playing and rehearsing social greetings. So these kids are trying different social things, and they might find that they're just tripping over themselves and making lots of mistakes and social guffaws all over the place. And that gets them feeling down and could lead to some social anxiety and social aversion. So we want to help them through that. So role play, especially as you see them wanting and in their curiosity, going after some social groups and people that you think would be a good fit, or might not be, try to kind of redirect them towards other kids. So rehearsing those greetings and those cues, because they're the ones that are missing those, and they're going to keep trying it. The social bubble and the social space, very, very important. These kids have a challenge with how close do I get when I'm talking to people, how what my personal space is, and social awareness. And that might also include topics, social topics, so that they can talk about anything. And we want to help them with, here are 3 topics that you can talk to about your friends, that kind of thing. So in my social skills group, I'm often helping kids in personal space situations. They might feel that the bubble's too far out, or often they're finding that that their friends are pushing them away and saying, hey, you're in my space, you're in my space. So they're going to get some information from their friends. So we want to be helping them through that. These are kids that are going to be ready to learn flexibility and learning new games and trying out different rules that are less than concrete or less than black and white. So yeah, this game is played this way. Yeah, kickball is played this way, but it's also played that way. And I've seen people play tennis with 3 people instead of 4. And because you don't have a fourth doesn't mean we can't figure out a way to play, because your other 2 buddies really like to play tennis and they asked you to play. So let's figure out a way to do this. So these kids, because they're curious and interested, are going to be motivated to do that. So we're just kind of like channeling and finding ways for them to get in there and do that. These are kids who are ready to deepen friendships and talk about things that are sensitive, perhaps, appropriately so. And so we want to keep in a developmentally appropriate place, but also, talking about their passions and being able to hear from other kids about what their interests are. So these kids are just needing some coaching around those kinds of things. An important one for me is this is the social jousting. A lot of kids on the spectrum of these social subtypes often feel or have experienced a sense of social bullying, and that can legitimately be a thing, and it can legitimately be a hypersensitivity or a misunderstanding in a social way to some kids that are teasing with them or joking with them or laughing with them. And there is no black or white. It's all gray. And of course, kids with ASD are really struggling in the gray area. And so what we want to do is to teach them that this exists so that they can feel comfortable with sarcasm. And when you're making a joke about somebody or you're roasting somebody, are they smiling with you or are they not smiling? That's what the jousting is. It's a playful thing and a learning thing, and not something we want them to avoid or over. We want them to protect themselves, but they will feel protected and in control of their personal body and personal space if they learn what the teasing part is, because that's a big gray area for a lot of kids that are especially in that middle school range where they're learning how to use sarcasm, they're learning how to tease each other, and they're not all doing it right. They're all learning. So, they're in it with the rest of their friends. So that's the term I use, is social jousting. Keep these kids keep introducing these kids to social opportunities, camps, trips, group experiences, that kind of thing. So these are less the one-on-one, and they certainly can be, but also more small group kind of experiences. All right, that's socially wanting. Questions or comments on each of these socially anxious or socially wanting subtypes?
None in the chat.
All right. Socially indifferent. Meh. Yes, these kids, hey, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, that's fine too. If someone calls me to go hang out, that's fine. And by call, I mean text, because I'm old, so I'm going to say call. So when your kids are trying to reach out to other kids and they're texting and they're messaging other kids, they're probably wanting some kind of connection. They might be getting communications from other kids that you're not aware of. So in the technology world and in the messaging world, we don't know who's communicating with your child necessarily. So there might be opportunities that they're missing because they're saying, well, that sounds like a lot of work. I don't know if I feel like doing that. So it might be at a socially kind of a low level socially anxious place, or just more indifferent, like I'm fine. I'm not avoidant, but I'm just fine, like not seeing people today, but tomorrow could be a better day and I might want to do something tomorrow. So with these kind of kids, we want to be doing the social opportunities with them because they need help initiating. Socially indifferent is really challenged with initiating. So we want to be doing things with them. We want to help them find the right social partners. Again, fit is important. So a lot of the other ones that are going to, a lot of strategies that you've used and the other two are going to overlap with the socially indifferent. Role playing and rehearsing important social events or greetings, outings. They might not know what to do at a middle school dance or a middle school event. There's an assumption that it's a known thing, but what if it's your first time? What are you supposed to do? So these kids are, I'm not ready to take that chance. So we can do some preloading, like, hey, what's going to happen and what happens here? And with a little bit of information, they might be, ready to initiate that kind of thing. So sometimes they just need a little bit of cueing to what's going to happen in the place they're going to be, the game that they're going to be doing. They're used to playing one-on-one, but now there's a larger Dungeons and Dragons event, and they like Dungeons and Dragons, and they like to play with other kids that they know, but these are kids they don't know. And so they might need help with who's going to be there and are they my age and who are they? And so they're a little more reluctant than the socially wanting, kind of socially all in kids. So we want to role play and rehearse those kinds of things. Again, trying activities that are in their area of interest. So being in their area of interest, and finding their passion are going to help them initiate social outings, canoe trips, those kinds of things. It's so hard to talk about all these social things in this time, in this day of COVID. I am so sorry for this for parents. It must be very, very challenging for you guys to go and try these social events when literally people are saying, and in order to keep people healthy, we can't do many of these things that I've talked about here today, and many of the things that you did in the past before COVID. So COVID-19 has really made our social interaction strategies hampered, to say the least. So we're trying to be creative about different ways of being social, and maybe even looking forward to social opportunities. So, being in larger spaces, I would love to hear from you guys about strategies that have worked in this COVID stage for any three of your social subtype children. Whether your child is anxious, wanting, or indifferent, what has worked socially during this time? And if you have any great ideas, Anna can read them out loud to everybody so everybody kind of gets, so feel free to share some of these ideas.
Yeah, there's actually a question about that too. She says, we used to spend time at the Science Museum or Art Center, etc. How do we compensate for nowhere to go?
Right. Very, very challenging. I mean, everything like that is just taking a lot of extra work to organize and figure out. So it is literally being creative for your child and your family. I have heard lots of different stories and different ways people are trying new things. Maybe making a science museum at your house. Wow, did I see a great marble run the other day on a TikTok or YouTube video or something. It was amazing. And I think I talked to a child about it, and he looked at his mom and said, a marble run or some other run that he was talking about that I hadn't heard of. And so I think off he went or something. It was just like, I hadn't thought about that. So it can be that immediate of a reaction. And I'm doing that now. I'm like, wait, hold on. Let's get things together. So it's really rethinking where you went to doing these things at home, making science experiments at home. But a good thing this didn't happen in 1990 when the internet was just on its feet and we don't have the access to information. So we can use the internet and those kinds of things to help us kind of recreate these moments and these experiences at home. One of the things that I talked about with a family the other day was doing an obstacle course, which is kind of like a playground. So there is gonna, we just tried to limit the amount of hands, but there's a lot of footwork and feet things, and in the end, people just had to, kind of clean up and be healthy that way. So, I mean, be safe, and if it's outdoors, kids can do these things far apart. Even cooperative games can be done at a distance. There's a favorite game that my family likes to play, which is, it's not a pamper pole. I'm going to describe the game, which is basically blocks of wood about a foot or two high, and there may be 6 inches in diameter, and you have a rope between you, and you each try to pull the other person off the stump, so that all you have to do is fall off. You don't have to fall and hurt yourself. So those kinds of things where you're far enough apart. So this is like 20 feet apart or 15 feet apart, as far as you want, just trying those different kinds of things outdoors. Tough to do a lot of things with other kids inside right now. So think of outdoor kinds of activities and strategies.
Yeah, we have some great ideas in the chat, so keep them coming. From Zoom meetings with friends, getting together weekly.
Yep.
Walk obstacle course in the driveway, gardening project, camp in the backyard.
Those are awesome.
And then I also have a question if you want to take that now.
Yep.
Okay. I have a teen. We changed schools about the time this COVID thing. He is a socially wanting and sometimes indifferent. He has had success in making good friends. In this difficult time, how do we encourage them through this socially dry time?
So wanting is great. Indifferent is initiating. So you might one thing I didn't mention that is certainly a thing where parents communicate about your children together and say, how can we get our kids together? So sometimes rallying parents of children together, say, what can we do to get them together in a safe way, and coming up with a plan together. The wanting is fantastic. So it can be, on a pier, at a lake, fishing together, if that is an area of interest for them. Is this inside or outside? Any specifics?
No.
Yeah. Follow-up question to that? Okay.
Yeah, unless you want to share in the chat.
Whoever's chatting on that can.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of space and outdoors, but also chatting and communicating with people online, just being able to see people's faces and look what I made, look what I did, being able to show people things that you're doing is a nice way to have a conversation just instead of talking to each other on video chats. It's nice to be able to have kind of a theme or a purpose. Hey, you guys make something and I'll make something, and let's see if we can put our cool galactic, sort of starship thing with Legos together, and, or whatever you're making, I'll make one too on my end, and that can be kind of a cool thing to share. So keep it going, I think, in this time is the key. Keep encouraging your kids to be social in positive, safe, healthy ways. Try to limit the negativity from other people, and kind of just draw it and point it in good, positive ways.
Yeah, a follow-up to that was the dry time is due in large part that the good friends aren't nearby anymore and they've let distance separate them.
Yeah, we could, you can come up with a kind of a fun challenge that people are doing. Like, I challenge you to make this cookie, and then you make cookies and or something, and look what I made, or look what you made, and look what I'm doing, look what you're doing. I'm being able to use social reciprocity. What did you do? Here's what I did. So being able to share things that, the motivating piece is that they have somebody they're interested in talking to. So you can use that motivating piece to draw a lot of different things out of your child, that their skills and abilities. You can record them playing the piano, playing a cool piece. I heard today an amazing piano piece by an almost 11-year-old. And, all these kinds of things were like, that could have been just a great social opportunity right there. For another child to maybe play their instrument or something, but it was really nice so it can really just be anything that gets kids connected. So there's the recap. So decrease those triggers for your anxious child, introduce skills for the socially wanting, and initiate and schedule social time for those kids who are a little bit socially meh. All right. Thank you all for coming to this webinar, participating, listening, and hopefully you've gotten some good ideas tonight on how to help your kids with ASD around these 3 social subtypes. Connect with me here on each one of these things. I think Anna mentioned if you wanted to take a snapshot of any one of these slides, or slides might be available in some way, shape, or form. Now enrolling is the ASD Parenting Journey, the Calm Compass. If you're enrolling in that, you can communicate actually through the course, the ASD Parenting Journey course, the Calm Compass course, with questions about specific things related to your child that are just come to me. And so it can be very individual through that. So it's another way to kind of help your child in this time here. So, and here's a special tonight. So if you sign up, it's $97 as opposed to the usual $147. And the coupon code is webinar, and that expires on Sunday. So if you're interested, now's a good time for that. And I can go back to that one. All right, so if there's no more questions, I thank you all very much for coming.
We did have 2 more questions if you have time.
I'm here until
right.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you say when every idea is met with, quote, meh, I'm fine?
Right. Remember, it's initiating. So let's get, and sometimes some kids need a little bit more initiation help. Well, we're doing everything to draw them in. And so there might be a point at which it feels like your child is more anxious than meh. So if your child is more anxious than they are indifferent, then there might be some things that we need to clear up in the sensitivity to anxiety. Like, what's bugging you about this? Because it seems like you're okay, but you're saying no to more things than you're saying, not really, not right now. So let's set some things up. So kind of taking a more serious talk, or a kind of a frank plan, like let's make a plan to get something social going. And how that goes is really through structure and through schedule. So if you say, well, at this time on this day, we're going to do these things and we're going to be with these people, online or not, here's how we're going to do it. Here's what I'm expecting from you. Let's walk through this so that it might be a little uncomfortable or awkward. And if it is, again, back to, wait, you're getting anxious. You're not indifferent, you're anxious. What's the anxiety about? Let's break that down and work through that.
And then we have 2 questions about the Calm Compass. What age group is it for? And is it a go at your own pace course?
It's for all ages. And yes, it's a go at your own pace. In fact, it sort of communicates to you, would you like to keep going now? I guess it sort of will send you some cues as to when you're, where you're at and resuming at the place you're at. So absolutely, it's yours. Once you sign up, it's yours. You can download the activity sheets, watch the videos for as long or as often as you want. I'm going to probably be adding to that in some way, shape, or form over time as well. So you'll have that more up to date those videos. And if there are videos of things you would like me to speak to, please communicate with me on that in some way, whether through the course or just privately through an email or something like that.
Great. There's no additional questions at this time.
Thank you, everybody.